Hey, this is Brooke, functional medicine dietitian specializing in fertility, and this is the Fertility Dietitian podcast, where I help you uncover the barriers that are preventing you from optimizing your fertility and teach you how to work with your body to finally take home a healthy baby. Each week, I will be diving into different topics on fertility and sharing my perspective on physiology, metabolic health, nutrition, and lifestyle approaches that have helped hundreds of couples get pregnant even after years of heartache. My goal is to empower you with the knowledge you need to take back control of your fertility. Happy listening. Is it really unexplained infertility? Getting a label of unexplained infertility is like saying, we don't know where else to look or what else to do, which is okay. But there are so many gaps in the conventional fertility protocol that it makes much more sense to refer out when they are not finding answers in your fertility clinic. IVF is not the answer for most. According to the conventional medicine world, unexplained infertility is when a couple has not been able to conceive for a year, if you're under 35 as a female, or you haven't been able to conceive for 6 months if you're over 35 as a female. And fertility testing has not identified a reason for not having conceived. The problem is that this fertility testing is very surface level and focused on the reproductive system, which of course is important, but we need to be focusing on the whole body and the whole person. So this fertility testing typically includes looking for uterine abnormalities or structural issues, making sure that ovulation occurs at regular intervals, making sure your fallopian tubes are open, and looking at your egg count. As an aside, check out my episode on AMH because low AMH is definitely not a reason to jump into IVF either. Additional testing looks at hormones that are being produced by the brain, making sure that your hormones and the brain is communicating appropriately with your reproductive system. And then they're also looking at a semen analysis on the male fertility side. So making sure that count and motility and shape of that sperm is appropriate. But remember, normal does not mean optimal. And today's normal sperm parameters, for example, would have been considered infertile just 15 years ago. So if you have quote unquote normal labs, but haven't been able to conceive, there are many areas to consider looking. We can dig deeper and take the guesswork out of what you need to do to improve the chances of taking home a healthy baby. Here at the Fertility Dietitian, about 80% of the couples that I work with have been told that they are unexplained. Yet we have not ever worked with a couple that has been labeled with unexplained infertility without finding at least 3 barriers that are leading to a longer time to baby. I like to consider this subfertility. Very, very few humans are actually infertile, but 1 in 5 couples have subfertility or have barriers that are making it challenging for them to conceive or carry to term. It's okay if your doctor has run out of ideas to explore. They are using their tools that they have been trained in, but this doesn't mean IVF is your only option. It's just their only tool left to use for you. And most often, IVF is not the answer. IVF is a very amazing, wonderful tool, but it is not going to increase your chances of taking home a healthy baby if there are underlying barriers leading to poor egg quality or poor sperm quality, or something is up with your health saying we are not ready to nourish a baby. There are many other places to investigate, and we can learn how to work with your body to improve egg quality, sperm quality, and reproductive environment. And with a deeper dive approach, we will improve your chances of taking home a healthy baby in a shorter amount of time, no matter how you end up conceiving. Check out episode 8 and episode 9, where I talk with previous clients that have been told they have unexplained infertility and listen to their stories. Typically, our conventional world will consider the barriers that we're uncovering minor, but your body doesn't see them as minor. It sees them as barriers that it wants to heal prior to being ready to nourish a baby. Yet conventional medicine doesn't see them as major issues because it doesn't add up to a diagnosis for them. When there are two or more barriers, they compound on each other, and this compounding effect leads to not being able to get pregnant. Some common barriers that pop up in the couples that have been told they are unexplained include suboptimal sperm parameters. So remember that normal semen analysis would have been considered infertile 15 years ago. So we're really looking for optimal levels. We're also looking at DNA fragmentation. This is a marker where I talk a lot about in a previous episode as well. Look for the DNA fragmentation episode. Subclinical thyroid imbalance is a major one that I see too. Poor gut health, very common to see. We have to be digesting and absorbing our food appropriately to get the nutrients like the vitamins and minerals out to be able to carry out the processes of creating energy and supporting the DNA programming in both follicle health and sperm health, for instance. Nervous system regulation is a big one as well. If you have been chronically stressed, whether it's like internal stressors like blood sugar imbalance, for instance, high toxic burden, your body is going to be in a state of high alert and not a state of prioritizing baby making. Mineral imbalance is a really big one, and we'll talk a lot more about this in a future episode, but minerals are necessary for how we create energy in every cell in our body, and fertility is a very energy-intensive process, so it is a major foundation for how your body's able to support fertility. Hidden inflammation is another big one. So we can see inflammation from everything from imbalanced blood sugar to high toxic burden to iron dysregulation, how maybe you're struggling to use certain nutrients or metabolize estrogen. Lots of ways that inflammation can contribute. High toxic burden is another barrier on its own because it's taking a lot of resources in the form of nutrients away from fertility. Compromised mitochondria is a big one too. So the mitochondria is a powerhouse of our cells. So again, like supporting that energy creation process. And our follicles have 10 times more mitochondria than any other cells in the body. So that gives you a bit of an idea of how much energy and how important that mitochondria is for supporting things like egg quality, ovulation, and reproduction as a whole. Iron dysregulation is another one that I see pretty commonly. Typically, our conventional providers don't have any idea of how to look at iron or how to support the body in regulating it. Our very basic labs like a CBC don't even begin to look at how iron is being used in the body. Well, I shouldn't say that. They do begin to, but there's a lot more to that story. And iron's really important for how we're oxygenating our cells. So the blood flow piece and getting nutrients into the cells in the way that we need them to. So important for follicle maturation, important for how our lining is being built, all those important steps of conception. So this is definitely not an all-inclusive list, but they're probably some of the most common barriers that I see popping up in my unexplained infertility clients. And every single one of these lead to additional barriers in how your body is able to support egg quality, sperm quality, and reproductive environment. The whole body works together, and it is smart. It will not prioritize reproduction if it doesn't feel safe enough to do so. As frustrating as it is, your body is working the way it was designed to. It's protecting you to help you survive. It is not broken, and you can get out of this state. Okay, that's an important and. Okay, even though you're currently likely feeling lost and like you're having to try to figure it out on your own, you don't, and you are not broken. Building a tiny human from scratch is a big deal. It takes a massive amount of energy your body doesn't have if it is using it up for something like high toxic burden or trying to decrease inflammation, or maybe it's struggling to support blood flow or simply get the nutrients out of the food that you're eating. You can shift into thriving fertile mode, and you don't have to figure it out all on your own. I am here to support you when you're ready. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fertility Dietitian podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review to let me know what topics you want more of or less of. If you want to keep learning, subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out my website for more info on my private coaching program, Master Your Fertility, or my membership community, Fertility Blueprint. And don't forget my digital store. Come say hi on YouTube and Instagram. See you in the next episode.